Boom! Boom! Down I go. Ouch. So that's how it works. Hi, I'm Rick Sordelay, and I'm a fight director. Eleanor Duse said, I am merely the vessel to the muse, and I've embraced that. The fights that I created in my head in the vacuum of myself served no purpose. They were a template that gave us something to start with, but it pales in comparison to walking in the door, listening to the director, listening to the actors, finding out what they think their limitations are, and then starting to put together the fight. If I listen carefully, everybody tells me everything I need in order to put the fight together. The first thing I'll ask the director, tell me your story. The most important part of choreography really is in the text, and from the text comes the action. Playwright writes a storyline. In this case, Tracy Letts says, okay, we have this story, and the story is about this man. This man happens to be 60 years old, and for the first time in his life, he is going to fight for something that matters. And that was the challenge, to try and create a fight that didn't look like a fight, that looked like a man in his 60s was fighting a man in his 50s, and that there was resolve because it was the fight of his life. The operative word is illusion. And when we throw a punch, we're throwing a punch in such a way that the audience will decode the information. Their eye takes in every image, and then they have to translate it so that their brain understands what the image is. In the process of that translation, we can hide things. I'm going to hit Mike, and as I hit Mike, he's going to turn, and it's going to look like I hit him. What you're going to see right now is that there's air between my fist and his face. So when I throw the punch, pow! That's what we don't want the audience to see. What we want them to see is the illusion that I hit him in the face. I can hit him and give him a backhand. The sounds we have to do on stage. There's no post-production for theater. Watch this hand. This hand actually makes the contact right here on the chest. In truth, all of it's acting. When I use the word schmacting, it's that sort of kind of thing. There it is. Now if I put a little juice to it and we both do some schmacking, it looks a little something like this. Film is one little camera. It's a one-eyed, legally blind entity. That's what it is. Bam! In theater, you've got all those people, and all those people have two eyes, and they all have a computer attached to those two eyes. And so your job becomes one that you have to design the fight in such a way that every eye is fooled into thinking that there's a real fight going on. And we can't have a stunt double jump in at the end of the play. We've just invested 2.5 hours of our life with this guy, and we love him. And we want to see him go through the rest of this journey. And so you have usually 3 weeks to teach this guy how to sword fight in such a way that it's believable. The thing about the Royal Family that was so much fun is that the character that Reg Rogers plays is sort of this Errol Flynn, Douglas Fairbanks, devil-may-care, heartthrob of the day kind of guy. He just has that zest for life. And another man who's a good fighter and an athlete just defending himself from this guy. And that was what we tried to do. So the sword fighting itself is not complicated. It's not very complicated like I would do for a Hamlet or a Romeo and Juliet. It's actually just a great deal of fun. But it's done with such gusto and vigor that the audience is left with a real sense of this guy and the situation. Like that, whoa, last minute kind of thing. The reason that we have a fight call for every show is for the actor's safety. The #1 rule in my list of 10 is safety. Safety first, safety first, safety first. Great. That's really, if it's not safe, and we can't do it 1,000 times out of 1,000, we can't do it. And there's no disputing this. This is what we were talking about earlier when we were talking about a fight call. This gives the actors an opportunity to come in, drop all the pedestrian from the day-to-day, and just focus on what they will be doing later that night when they do the fight. And what the fight call does is it brings us back to a theatrical reality. Now I walk through the fight with my partner, and I can put my focus physically onto what I'm going to be doing later that night, so that when I get to that fight, my body has experienced it already, and it just steps into place very nicely and organically.
By the time we get to performance, the real trick for a fight director is to have the fight scene be so immersed into the arc of the scene, there's no separation. It's not like, oh, I went to see the play last night and the fight scene was great. I don't want to hear that. I want to hear the play was great and there was a fight in it.
It was just the work. And that is an example of what I like best about doing fights for theater, is that you just don't know where the fight scene begins and you don't know where it ends. It's just part of the story.